Welcome everyone to week 2 of the Leadership Alliance Virtual Professional Development Series. My name is Dr. Taiese Bingham-Hickman, Executive Director of the Leadership Alliance, and I will be the moderator for today's event. This event is a component of the Leadership Alliance Virtual Professional Development Series. The Executive Office and its partners created this initiative to ensure continuity of skill building, networking, and exposure to graduate programs for undergraduate students across the country. Paired with our Wednesday evening workshops, we hope to expose you to a discussion of critical issues, allow you to network with each other, our wonderful doctoral scholars, and develop learning approaches and skills for navigating your research careers. Today, I'm pleased to introduce doctoral scholar Dr. Teresa Ramírez. Dr. Teresa Ramírez is a first-generation Mexican-American scientist and changemaker with over 20 years of experience in biomedical research. She grew up in Compton, California, and began her journey doing community service at the age of 4. Ever since, she has dedicated her life to advocating for equity and inclusivity in science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics education. She earned her doctorate degree in molecular pharmacology and physiology from Brown University, where she also founded in 2012 the university's Society for the Advancement of Chicanos, Hispanics, and Native Americans in Science, or SACNAS chapter. Dr. Ramírez is a Leadership Alliance alumni, and she currently serves on the President's Advisory Council on Diversity and the Advisory Council of Biology and Medicine at Brown University. A lifelong mentor and role model, Dr. Ramírez uplifts students nationwide, especially underrepresented youth, through mentorship, advocacy, and programs. She helped lead 2 transformative programs, the Latina Labs STEM initiative with Latinas Leading Tomorrow, and the Youth Environmental Summer Camp through ecoLatinos, both designed to empower youth, particularly from underrepresented communities, to pursue higher education and become future leaders in STEAM and environmental justice. Dr. Ramírez previously served as a health specialist at the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism at the National Institutes of Health, contributing to advancing science within associated alcohol liver disease research. She is deeply grateful for the scholarships that opened doors for her own academic journey, and she is committed to giving back, sharing her passion for science, and empowering the next generation of diverse leaders through adversity and lead with purpose. So thank you so much, Dr. Ramírez, for joining us. That's quite the background. We're so thrilled to have you today. And I know we have a number of students here with us that would love to hear about you and your journey in more detail. So I guess the first question that will kick us off here that a student has asked is, how has your journey from Compton to national leadership shaped your work mentoring and advocating for underrepresented youth in STEAM?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity. It's such a pleasure to be here, and good afternoon, everyone. Well, that's a great question. Growing up in Compton was not easy because attending public schools, there's a limitation on resources, but also it was beneficial that I had the support of my parents, who always knew that they wanted the best for me. And so they would always look for opportunities. And I was always involved in like after school programs, which actually initiated that kind of leadership kind of force that I had with me, and always being very curious about things. So I didn't really let those limitations stop me, and especially coming from a city where it doesn't have the best reputation, but I was actually very proud of being from Compton because that's where I grew up. I was born in Torrance, California, but I grew up in Compton and went to Compton Public Schools. And I always wanted to do my best in getting like the best grades, being active in the community, something that I learned from my parents, volunteering at the church, our local church, volunteering with our neighbors, helping in whatever ways we could, and also with students. Like they started coming to me because I had some kind of like ways of explaining and really motivating them. So it's just became something very natural that I started doing. But then when it came to high school, it really shocked me that there wasn't a lot of resources in regards to college. But me, again, being that person that I always ask questions, I was able to really apply to many scholarships. But then when I graduated from high school, I felt that there was a need for me to come back and help the students. And from there on, it kind of got well known that the whole community in Compton was calling my parents like, hey, can Teresa come and help my daughter or my son? And ever since then, I said, you know what? I'm here. It's not just part of my commitment as a professional, but it's part of my personal mission to help and especially be able to guide and provide resources to those students who don't necessarily have them. And I know what it takes because I went through that route and it was tough, but I was able to navigate and ask for help and get that help that I needed.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Um, so it mentioned in your bio that you started early, 4 years old. So that if you could talk a little bit about what you were doing at 4 years old, that would be amazing. And then, leading up to your youth, students want to know, how did you start your own organizations? And when you're leading a youth or community-based group, what are some things that they should consider to ensure success? So if you want to talk a little bit about that, that'd be great.
Yes. At 4 years old, I actually was helping one of our neighbors who at that time was about, I don't know, like in her 90s. I would go with my mom every night to ensure that this lady, her name was Doña Juanita, to make sure that she was fine, that she had eaten. And we were kind of like her company, but every day I would see my mom doing this. She wasn't getting paid. She just cared so much for this person that later on I actually adopted her as my grandma because my grandparents were in Mexico. And to me, it was something very natural that I learned, and I saw that from my mom, how passionate she was, and the way the love that we received from Doña Juanita was precious to me. So when she passed away, she was 104 years old. And so I got to see her and spend that time that I really needed from my grandparents. But for me, that didn't seem to be community service. It just seemed something that we were doing for her. But as the years passed, I learned that this was actually community service because we were helping her. We were making sure her clothes was clean, that she had food cooked. And even one time when we came to see her, she was trying to cook, but she was almost catching her sweater into like fire. So we were just there in time to prevent that. So from there on, I just felt like, wow, there is a need in my community and I'm able to help without getting paid because I love doing this. I haven't really started my own nonprofits. Eventually, I would love to have a foundation where I provide scholarships for first generation students, but I have helped in numerous nonprofit organizations where they have allowed me to help students by sharing my story, but also to really implement and share resources in the science, technology, and engineering, arts, and mathematics, opportunities for them to learn more about what is science. Because if you were to ask me before when I was a kid, oh, do you like science? No, because I didn't really know what it was, right? Do you want to become a scientist? No, I wanted to become a pediatrician because I didn't have that knowledge, right? So once I was guided into doing summer internship programs, so take advantage of this opportunity, I started learning what it meant to do biomedical research, the importance of it, and how that actually helped medicine. So I kind of deviated from pursuing a medical degree to going to doing more research. But I have actually helped like Latinas Leading Tomorrow, actually here in the Maryland area, where it's a nonprofit organization that is geared to really empower middle school and high school girls to pursue higher education. But I, as a scientist, have implemented more of the science aspect. And then through ecoLatinos, really teaching students to learn more about environmental conservation. And last year I was able to plan and lead a summer camp, which was really amazing because you get to learn about water invasive plants and getting students interested in science, but also getting them out in nature. So there's different ways where you could definitely volunteer, but sharing your story, I think it's very important, but also being able to do it with passion, because when you have passion, it shows and students can see that. And when they see that, they become inspired, and then they're like, we want to be like this person, or I want to do the same thing. So you're able to share those resources that you have gone through, or you can also share your network. Like, hey, this person can mentor you. So I would say don't be afraid and just ask for opportunities, nonprofits, like volunteer. There's always a need for volunteers. And
Mhm.
like I said, when you're volunteering, you don't get paid. But the biggest paid is the difference that you've made, that feeling of gratitude that you've accomplished something positive.
Amazing. And so, leading into that, then, for an undergraduate student, how would you say, or what advice would you give them in terms of trying to get involved? And you just talked a little bit about it in terms of volunteering, but who want to get involved in biomedical research or health research early on in their academic careers? What advice would you give to them?
Well, the advice that I would give to a student who's interested in biomedical research is to really look at the different programs that exist in your college, university, and go talk to the directors and say, hey, I'm interested. Perhaps they might not have the funding to pay you, but it's okay because you're going to be learning. And when I had that opportunity as an undergrad, it actually came through an internship that I did as a high school student. But I was still a high school student prepping to go to college when I was given the opportunity to go talk to a director for a program that at the time was called the Minority Biomedical Research Support Program, the MBRS program. And I was committed. So when I went to college, I went and I spoke with this director. But at that time, this person didn't have an opportunity for me. But I knew I wanted this. So she said, come until you're a sophomore. When I was a sophomore, again, I went knocking her door and she had an opportunity for me. But at that time, they did have funding. I'm not sure how is it to, and nowadays in these uncertain times, but if there's no funding, it's okay. Go talk to professors who are doing particular research that you might be interested in learning, and just say, I want to shadow you. I want to shadow your graduate student, and you start getting your hands wet. Even if you start learning the most minimal things, it's okay because those minimal things are building your foundation. Once you have that foundation built, then you can learn other things, but learn those concepts, but don't be afraid to ask professors or those running labs, directors for like, I want to shadow so and so, or I would like to shadow someone from your research lab. And I think that's kind of like the way it would start, because if the student doesn't ask, no one is going to come to you to say, hey, you'd be great for my lab, come join me. No, you have to be your own advocate. And that's something that I remember me doing, going, and they told me no. So I went again because I really wanted this. And that's how kind of like my research career began, from that opportunity.
Excellent. And can you talk a little bit about your specific experiences as a first generation Mexican American and how that influenced um, the way that you mentor or that you design programs? And how do you balance your cultural identity with the demands of scientific spaces that haven't always been inclusive?
That's a great question. Being someone who cares and is proud of her culture, being Mexican American is something that I'm very proud of. Being able to speak Spanish as my first language and then English is something that I feel that I am very blessed to know, because it has helped me throughout my career. But also at the same time, has it been easy? No. There's been instances where I've faced discrimination for being Latina. There's been instances where I've been told that I didn't have the skills to be able to be in a graduate program. There's been also instances where, again, negative comments have been said, like, oh, you can't do this, you're not smart enough. But one of the things that I've learned through my family is being able to be determined, but also not let this negativity affect me. One of the things that I've learned at a very, very young age, Thais, is that in middle school, I had an incident that opened my eyes. And that incident, I could have died, but I was given a second chance. From there on, at a very young age, I decided, do I want to be dwelling in this, like be feeling sorry for myself, or do I want to be happy and positive and take every opportunity to learn? I decided that I wanted to take any opportunity to learn and be positive about things. So when something negative happens, I always try to see the positive, and try to see ways that I can grow and continue on. And as my mother would say, si te caes, te levantas. If you fall, you get up and you continue. So that's one of the things that has happened to me, where if I feel a little down, then I remember those words of my mom and I continue pursuing my dreams. So I would tell students, be proud of who you are, be proud of where you come from, and a place doesn't determine your success. Me growing in an underserved community didn't determine my success, and I have made it out. But I also remember where I come from, and I'm always very proud of who I am. Even in places in the sciences, it's hard to sometimes have a voice, but don't be afraid to share your thoughts, to share your opinions, because that is you. And because of you, there could be changes, great changes being made. And one of the things that I've learned through this career path is not to be afraid, but also to ask questions when there's something that doesn't make sense, or bring also like my whole self to this is the way a scientist looks like. I would wear bright colors, which is something that also identifies me as like me as a Mexican American through my jewelry. And sometimes people would ask me, where are you going? I'm going to the lab. But that made me happy, right? It wasn't like I was going somewhere, I was going to the lab, but that's how I felt identified. At Brown University, I became part of the Mariachi de Brown. I was singing. So that was another aspect of how I was bringing my culture, but yet it reminded me of where I was, but also was part of a community. Another instance is being empathetic. There's sometimes individuals who don't understand you, but just being open to sharing who you are, a little bit of your culture, but also learning from those people. And I think once you share, people become less afraid of saying negative things. Sometimes they don't mean it, sometimes they do, but just being empathetic, understanding, but don't letting those negative words stop you.
Thank you for that, for those words of encouragement. We have another question that's related to that, and from another Latina student. So she says, as a Latina myself who is interested in doing very similar work and uplifting those in my community, what helps you to stay really motivated, especially during these unprecedented times? I often struggle with not trying to lose hope in seeing the state of the world, and would be interested to hear your thoughts on how you, as a professional in this field, manage to overcome difficult days that sometimes come along with this job and strength to move forward.
Yes, it's hard to stay focused on in difficult times, but I think one of my biggest reminders, first of all, is that I remind myself that I'm blessed to be alive, that I'm blessed to be able to do the things that are under my control, and also what I am reminded is my family. I am the success of my family who immigrated to this country looking for the American dream. So when I think about hard times, I'm like, it was even harder for them. I can do this. One of the things that really keeps me up going is really thinking that, you know, if I'm able to share my story in hopes of inspiring others, and I see that I have inspired someone, that gives me more energy to continue. And nowadays, I understand that there's a lot of negativity going on around the world. But I think, again, looking at my path and the things that I've done and the positive impact that I've brought in many communities is what keeps me going. And so I feel like that is part of my mission, and I'm not going to stop during this time. Of course, one of the biggest advice would be first, you have to take care of yourself before you can take care of others. And that's one thing that I have done, taking care of myself, doing exercise, doing the things that motivate me and make me happy, like being surrounded by a supportive group of network of friends, family, and also exercising, like I mentioned, and then working out to the community. Because if you're not feeling well, then it's really hard to be able to do these type of things. So first, you have to take care of yourself. Meditating could be one. Um, Doing art, singing, dancing, you name it, different things that can bring you that calmness, then you can focus on other things. And that's one of the things that I've been also doing, taking care of me first before taking care of others. Because before, it was mostly of, oh, let me do this for other people. And I wasn't really taking care of me. So at one point, I was getting burned out. But in my heart, it was like, no, don't stop because this is something that I really love doing. So now I've learned my lesson.
So another somewhat related question, a student wants to know how you found the SACNAS chapter at Brown. How did you, start it? Were you able to start it because you already had a network of peers who were Chicano, Hispanic, and Native American, or um, what encouraged you to start that chapter? And then for those who don't have that network, how would you recommend that they go about starting a chapter at their university?
When I started the SACNAS chapter at Brown, it was during a time that I've always wanted to start one. It was in 2012, but I actually wanted to start it back in 2010, my third year of grad school. That didn't happen because they like my committee and my research advisor, they were like, no, you first have to pass your qualifying exams and you need to focus on that. You can't start this. So I've been a member of SACNAS for over 20 years. And for me, SACNAS has really played a role in my life. And one of the things that I really wanted was to share that with other students. Was like, SACNAS has helped me, and I wanted SACNAS to also play a role in their careers. And that was the biggest motivation of me starting a SACNAS chapter, to create community, but not just for graduate students. I wanted it to be kind of like a pipeline of mentorship from undergrad to graduate, postdoc, and faculty members to be involved. But like I said, it didn't start when I wanted. It started after I had passed my qualifying exams. And I started communicating with other students who seemed to be interested. But let me tell you, not all of them were Chicanos or Native Americans or Hispanics. No, SACNAS is open to all. So I had students from different cultural backgrounds who wanted the same, or actually believed in the same mission, that we needed mentorship, but we also needed to build community. So we joined into founding it. I was the founder and the first president. And from there on, we started doing activities that involve professional development, but also involve relationships between faculty members and students. Because once you're in grad school, sometimes you get so focused in your research that you don't have the opportunity to meet other professors. So we wanted professors to really get involved with other students from different departments, and also the undergraduate students. Because at Brown, undergraduate and graduate students can be a little separated. Sometimes they might be taking classes together, but there's not really a community. So we wanted to be able to build that community through SACNAS, and it worked beautifully because to this day, it is still active, which I feel very fortunate.
Yes, it is very active. I'm familiar with the SACNAS chapter at Brown. We always accompany them um, to the SACNAS conference, and I know that they're very active, and it's an amazing chapter. So,
To start a chapter, there are different guidelines that you can obtain from the SACNAS website, but for sure, you definitely have to have an executive board, like president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, a strong executive board, and you have to have at least two mentors for the chapter, like faculty members, and you just submit the application and start recruiting for people. That's how we started. And now, I mean, I don't really know how many members there are, but I know that there's a good number of students involved in the Brown SACNAS chapter. You might ask, at your university, there might be an active SACNAS chapter. Just become a member. If not, you could definitely start one. It's not hard at all.
thank you. We have another question. This student identifies as a first-generation student who is looking into graduate school. They, throughout their education, they say they felt behind when it comes to college requirements, and this pressure has gotten worse with all of the additional requirements for graduate school. So what types of resources or recommendations do you have for first-generation students who are looking to navigate these types of challenges?
As a first generation, it's very challenging, especially, for instance, my parents didn't have the opportunity to graduate from high school nor go to college. So navigating through these different roads of like preparing for college was difficult. But I was able and I was fortunate enough to meet people who helped me, like counselors, mentors at school. There was a recruiter from the university where I went to undergrad, California State University, Dominguez Hills, who used to come. So I would actually ask her questions like, what are the requirements? Do you have any scholarships? I want to attend this university. And just making sure that perhaps you meet with individuals who might have these pathways already kind of aligned where you can ask questions. It is difficult, but not impossible. So if you really want something, you could definitely find the answers, but don't let being a first generation get on the way. I did have the imposter syndrome. I'm pretty sure many of you know what that means, thinking that you're not enough, thinking that perhaps you're behind. And I did feel that way because when I graduated from high school, Compton Senior High School, I was at the top. But when I went to college, I was really shocked because my GPA really dropped down. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's not me. But then going into like joining study groups, going to tutoring really helped me get back to where I was initially. And also, one of the things that really marked the difference was when I was taking a statistics class. I studied very hard. And one of the things I learned in college was that you can't leave things behind because once you don't stay up on top of your timelines, then you are really like behind. And so that's one of the things that I had to learn. But in college, I was taking that statistics class and I got a straight, like an A. And other kids that were coming from like well-known cities didn't do so well. And when they started asking me questions, that's when I thought, okay, I'm not that bad. Like I know my stuff and I can help others. And I was really excited to be able to share and help the students. So from there on, I thought, I'm here for a reason. And yes, I'm not supposed to know everything, but I'm here to learn. So when you don't know something, don't be afraid to ask questions. And that's one thing that I feel as first generations, we kind of sometimes feel afraid of asking because we think, oh, people are going to think that we don't know, that, we're kind of low on our grades, that we need a lot of help. Like, no, it's okay. That is why you're there, to ask questions, and you're not behind. You are there because you are meant to be there.
We have a couple of questions about how you got into mentorship and what drives you to be a mentor, and how do you think mentors have helped shaped your trajectory in terms of your pursuit of your PhD?
I don't have any siblings, so I think about I've always have been drawn to children, kids, and trying to teach them. From an early age in high school, I was able to help at my church Sunday school, where I was mentoring kids there. I worked or volunteered at a daycare center. So the mentoring started at a very early age where I was helping students within my community, but also kids that I felt that needed my help and they were asking me for like help. And from there on, I felt like, again, it's part of that mission of being able to share the resources, of being able to share my story. Like, hey, I'm from Compton and I'm in college. You can do it too. There were students who had single parents and they didn't know what to do. I was there to share that story and give them hope and help them throughout their college essays, applying for financial aid, and teaching them like there's other ways where you can get financial help. Um, for me, mentors have really played an important role. I didn't know the importance of it until later on. But when I was in high school, yes, mentors played a role, like my counselors, my teachers, but also my parents, even though they didn't know much, they were a great, like, they were my cheerleaders. They're like, you could do anything. Whatever you set your mind to, you can accomplish it. But also joining societies like SACNAS was where my eyes were opened and I started to meet mentors from different places. So, one of the things that I tell students, a mentor not necessarily has to be from your similar cultural background. A mentor doesn't have to be a scientist. You can have mentors from different career fields because they can see and they can give you those advice. You want someone who's not just going to be like, oh yeah, that's fine, that's good. No, you want to be able to have a person who's going to serve as a mentor, but he is going to be really real with you. Is going to tell you what's wrong, is going to tell you what's good, but is also going to be able to be empathetic and show you the road of success. The road of success is very different for each person, but at least they can guide you to it. And it is you who is going to create that road. You might come upon obstacles and challenges, but you're going to be able to jump them and continue on. And that's exactly what I did. Did I allow situations to stop me while I was in Compton? No. In college, did I allow grades to like stop me? No. And I say this because you're like I was telling you, I had the imposter syndrome. And when I was taking a course that I was doing horrible, I didn't know that I could just, you know, leave it behind and then just wait until the next semester to take the same class. I stayed and I almost failed it, but I didn't know that. I was a first freshman. And when I learned this, then I took it upon myself to really help the students and be like, if there's a class that you can't continue on, it's okay. You can stop, retake it again the following year, and you'll do fine. So those are kind of like the things that I've gone through, but mentorship has really played a role. And even to this day, I have mentors all over.
Your bio also mentions obviously your community service, which you talked a little bit about already. So a student wants to know, how did that lead to your current career in research? And the two aren't necessarily connected. So how did that or those experiences influence your pursuit of research?
Yeah. So, wow. The the mentoring also began at an early age. I feel like it all starts as a kid because when students would come to school as immigrants, I was the one translating with them. So when I was in the sciences, I was the person teaching our interns. Why? Because I had the patience. I was good in teaching, and my advisor or my bosses would be like, "You're going to be in charge of the students," which they loved. I was able to teach what I had learned, but also was able to guide them with respect, but also with patience. Because, with patience, students feel a lot more comfortable as if you're like macromanaging or you're like demanding. Like, no, it was with patience. So it's all started in that way since undergrad. Undergrad, I didn't know much. But once I started learning, then I was the one teaching the new incomers. I went for a post-bac program. I learned. Then we had another post-bac student. Then I was teaching that post-bac. Then I went for my postdoc. And again, so it was kind of that cycle that I thought, why is it always me? But then I kind of looked back and I'm like, oh, yeah, well, that's how I am. Like, I'm the person who's able to explain, but also make people feel welcome. And I think that's one of the things that that's the reason why my advisors or bosses would always lean over to be like, you're the one in charge. And at the end, when I would see the students present their work, I felt very proud because I know that I helped this much. They did a lot of the work, but it was giving them that network, that support, and that push that they could also do it. So if you're in the sciences and you're able to teach, I would advise you, don't be afraid. Share, peer mentorship is also important. Mentoring within each other, I think, can also lead to great things. For me, I've come across peers that were a little competitive. I'm not about competition. I'm more like, I teach you, I share what I can, and if you succeed, I'm happy for you. But sometimes those cases don't exist because they're competing against you or giving you bad vibes. We don't need that. We need good vibes, right? And so I've come across those situations as well.
So a few students, you talked about imposter syndrome, and the fear, but this student actually is turning the question on its head and asking, how do you think your experience as a first generation student impacted or helped you succeed in biomedical research?
Well, as a first generation Latina, it did help me to get scholarships. It helped me to meet new people and be in places that I never imagined I could be. Um, as a first generation student, it also gave me the opportunity to leave California to attend a graduate school in a different state. Because let me tell you, I applied to California schools, and that's where I really wanted to go, but I didn't get accepted. The only school that accepted me in the West Coast was Stanford. Well, it placed me in a waiting list, but all the schools that I applied outside of California, like Brown, Purdue, UT, San Antonio, accepted me. And I felt like that was kind of like a push. Maybe it was, I don't know. There could be many factors. But as a first generation, I felt like it was an opportunity for me to leave, even though I didn't want to leave. But now when I look back, I'm grateful. Um, there has been pros and cons being a first generation. First generation providing me like new opportunities, fellowships. For pre-doctoral fellow, a fellowship that I was provided while being a graduate student for not just my work, but I think also being a first generation played a role. There's also been instances being a first generation where I asked for a letter of recommendation for a scholarship, and the person didn't really know me, but he was a professor and wrote the worst letter. So, like I said, there's been wins and not good times, but I've learned that it's okay because this is who I am. I'm not going to change it. And I try to surround myself with good people, a supportive network, and also the people that I can trust because not everybody is trustworthy. So you have to be careful. But one of the biggest things is for you to believe in yourself and be proud of who you are.
Thank you. That's great advice. Um, a few students asked about your experience at Brown and how that shaped your interest, your current interest, or your professional journey. So can you talk a little bit about your time as a graduate student and your experience at Brown?
So when I attended Brown, I was so grateful because as an undergraduate, I had applied to many summer internship programs. And one of the goals was to go to the National Institutes of Health, NIH. At the time, I think I didn't get accepted to NIH, but I got accepted to the Leadership Alliance program. And to be honest, I actually did not apply to Brown. I had applied to Harvard, I think Johns Hopkins, and Stanford. But the letter that I received was, congratulations, you got accepted to the Brown internship program. And I had no idea where Brown was located. I didn't know that it was an Ivy League school. But when I look back, that was the best thing that could have happened. Why? Because years later, I came back to Brown as a graduate student. I was more aware of where things were, the people, and I loved my experience at Brown. I felt like it was a community that I had. Um, Also, I had the opportunity, like mentioned earlier, to start a SACNAS chapter, be part of the Mariachi de Brown. Even though I was in my graduate studies, I made time during the weekends to volunteer in Providence, even though I was told that I couldn't do it by my professor. But that was me. If I didn't do community service, like talking to high school students, middle school kids, that wasn't part of my like my mission. Like I was missing something from that mission. So I would do that. And I always kept myself busy. I also learned how to dance Argentine tango. They were giving free classes at Brown. So my experience there was amazing because not only did I have a community within the Brown University, but also outside of Brown. And to me, that was very important. To this day, I still stay in touch with some of those individuals outside of Brown. And so that was part of what made my experience great. Also, there were some negative things that happened. Um, During my third year, I had to switch labs, and I felt like I had to start the from the beginning, and I didn't know if I was going to graduate. I also was told that I couldn't graduate from a professor because she didn't think I had the qualities that I needed to be in a graduate program. That I could graduate. She said that I could graduate with a master's degree and make such a big difference in my Latino community. To me, that was very hurtful. But what kept me focused again was talking to my mom and her reminding me, like, you're there for a reason. You fall, you get up, you continue. So that gave me a lot of strength. And even though it was something negative, like the lab that where I was moving, then I was told this the same year, the third year. My third year was the worst, I feel. But I'm glad that this situations occurred. Why? Because it allowed me to grow and pursue something different. From there on, I was doing cancer research. Then I was led to an alcohol liver disease research lab, which allowed me to learn something new. And that became my career. Not only that, I came to a lab where the person that I was working with, I'm going to be honest, had a bad reputation that she was tough. But guess what? She was a great mentor because she believed in my potential and she ensured that I graduated and published 3 first author papers, which I did. And to this day, we're still in touch. She checks up on me, I check up on her. And it's been a great relationship, even though at times, yes, she would make me cry in grad school. But when I think about it, she wanted the best for me. And I really thank her because some of the things, not that I make students cry, but some of the things that she was trying to teach me, now I use that as part to teach my mentees to ensure that they know and that they become the professionals that they need to be.
So we have a number of questions that we didn't get to from students, and I believe that we will be sharing your information or your LinkedIn in the Google Classroom. So if there are students out there that didn't get their questions answered, feel free to reach out. Um, but I guess just a follow-up question, what would be, what is the most significant piece of advice or words of encouragement that you can give to provide students with some optimism around their pursuit of research or how to break um, into doing research? Can you offer any words of wisdom?
Yes. One thing that I forgot previously before I can answer this was that being at Brown, it was a blessing to have the Leadership Alliance office because I would be there very often seeking support. So take advantage of that if you go to Brown University. One piece of advice that I would give students is do not let situations like tough situations get on the way. Sometimes they're there to teach you a lesson, but also to make you a stronger individual. But one of the advice is that helped me throughout my career is surrounding myself with people that supported me, not just as a mentor, but giving me that sense of like relief of like I have somebody who's there to listen. I have someone there who's there to give me an advice, or someone that is there to, hey, let's go grab an ice cream. Someone who's going to be not judgmental, but is going to be there to help you and who's going to be a true friend. You don't need a great number of people. It's okay to have a few people, but people who are honest and people who are respectful, that's all you need. Another thing that I would advise students is to find something that gives you happiness. As a grad student, some students were really stressed out with work and research. I was sometimes stressed, but what really gave me that sense of like balance was going to dance Argentine tango. That was my therapy, going dancing. So not forgetting about yourself, because sometimes as students, we have that like commitment, like that goal, we want to achieve it, but sometimes we forget about our personal lives. I would suggest, please do not forget that you're living, this is your life. The time that is here is going to pass. You're not going to see that. So take advantage of every moment. Take advantage of being happy, being grateful, but doing things that you love. And that will reflect on your research, on your productivity. If you don't take the time for you, you're going to be sick, you're going to be stressed, and you don't want to be in the hospital. Please take care of yourselves and make sure that you surround yourself with positive people. And when challenges come, like I said, one door closes, other opens. And for me, there were many doors that closed, but I'm glad that the other doors that opened allowed me to learn new things like doing alcoholic liver disease research, which later on, that is the reason why I came to Maryland. I did a postdoc at the NIH, and then allowed me to work with the community as a genetics and education fellow. So there's many opportunities that you can use science, either doing research, doing administrative work, teaching, policy, you name it. Science is important for medicine. I didn't become a pediatrician, but I became a scientist, and I'm still working with people and doing the things that I love.
It's great advice. And I would also add to that is, you know, it's okay when you are rejected or you hear no. You will be rejected from a number of opportunities. And I myself, I didn't get every single opportunity that I applied for, whether that be as a student when I was looking for research internships or fellowships, or even now as a PI, when I apply for grants, I don't hit 100% all of the time, and that's okay. But those experiences, the rejections actually build resilience, and they actually teach you, as Dr. Ramirez was saying, a lesson, or they'll teach you, okay, you're not good at this, but you need to work on this. And the next time you apply for that, you're more experienced, you have more skills, So even though at the time it may seem like a setback, there's always a lesson in the failure. So I will just say that, don't get discouraged. I know right now it's very difficult in the field of research and to become a scientist. There are a lot of challenges, but it just builds resilience. So I would just say, if this is something that you're really passionate about, keep pursuing it.
Exactly. And one of the things that I feel looking back at my journey, I'm so glad that the schools that rejected me did so, because it pushed me from my comfort zone and allowed me to see different places, to be in a different location like Brown in Providence, Rhode Island, and now in Maryland, where I've been able to interact with like Congress people. I've gone to the White House, places that I never ever imagined, go to galas with important people. And sometimes I do want to pinch myself because I'm like, am I really here? And then when I think about it, I'm like, yeah, I am supposed to be here. So dream, don't cut yourself short. Dream, have those goals. And if you envision it, you could see it. And one advice that I would tell students, do a vision board. That's one thing that I started doing for the past 7 years, a vision board that you can cut from newspaper, magazines, words that come to you, things that you see that you want to be able to accomplish. Put it in a way that you could see it, or you could do it virtually in your computer, in your desktop, where every time you open it, you could see, oh, that is my goal. I need to accomplish this. Let me tell you, it does come true. Sometimes it comes within weeks, months, or a few years, but it comes true. And I love my vision boards.
I have to agree with that. I created one, I think in graduate school, and everything that I put on there for the most part has become a reality. So vision boards work. consciously or subconsciously, who knows, but they work. So, so yes, look into that. But we want to thank you so much, Dr. Ramirez, for your time and for your words of wisdom. Again, to the students out there, I know there are a number of questions we didn't get to, so feel free to reach out to Dr. Ramirez, log into the Google Classroom, and then you'll find the information there. So thank you again. We are going to end for today. We will see you all back on Wednesday for our workshop. And again, thank you, Dr. Ramirez, for your time.
Thank you so much. And I would say to students who are interested in connecting, Jane or someone else will share my information, and I'm happy to set a meeting with a group of you guys to have a conversation. And thank you again for inviting me, Dr. Bingham-Hickman. I'm really excited to have shared a little bit of my experience, but it's been a long journey, and I'm really grateful where life has taken me, because it's also taught me to be resilient, but also to never give up and be able to help in whatever communities I am.
Thank you so much. We'll see you back on Wednesday. Have a good day, everyone.